While a lot of us happily watch horror movies all year round, obviously the horror gets amped up for the masses each and every Halloween season. And if you're looking for some fun delights this Halloween, or even for after Halloween, well, we've got you covered with some fantastic movies here. Not just are these movies fantastic though, but the caveat is that they're all a bit, well, bonkers. Yes, a serious, well-crafted, well-constructed, elevated horror is all well and good, but sometimes it's good to embrace the more wacky films out there. Not all of these are set at Halloween per se, of course, but they certainly are well worth a watch at Halloween. So with that in mind then, I'm Andrew from What Culture Horror, and here are the 10 most ridiculous Halloween horror movies. Number 10. Tucker and Dale vs. Evil. The horror genre has a laundry list of tropes and cliches, with Tucker and Dale vs. Evil extremely aware of those, and smartly subverting all expectations, complete with some fun meta references for good measure. As for the premise itself here, on face value it's a very familiar one, with a group of teens camping out in the wilderness when things start to go very wrong for them. Usually the two hillbillies living in a rundown cabin in the middle of nowhere, they would be the prime suspects here, but nope, not this time out. No, you see, Tucker and Dale are a couple of sweethearts just looking to fix up their dream home. The teens, having watched way too many horror movies themselves, they obviously presume Tucker and Dale to be crazed killers due to a few unfortunate misunderstandings and genuine coincidences, all as the film plays out in pretty hilarious fashion. Tucker and Dale are a pair of legitimately endearing fellas, and you can't help but feel sorry for them as Tucker and Dale vs. Evil flips horror on its head in tremendous fashion. Number 9. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. It may be vastly different to its predecessor, but I absolutely love the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. And while this sequel didn't receive the praise of the original TCM, it's a film that's received plenty of love in more recent years. With Tobe Hooper back in the director's chair, this sequel has just as much black comedy as it does all-out horror. But that's not to say that there aren't plenty of scares on offer, with Leatherface and his family once again a terrifying proposition, complete with murderous hippie Vietnam vet brother chopped up. In terms of the more bizarre nature of TCM2, there's a chili contest that Drayton Sawyer wins thanks to his secret meat. There's a Leatherface who's a more bumbling, clumsy oaf this time out, complete with using his chainsaw as a metaphor for his manhood. And there's even a chainsaw duel to round things out. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, man, it is quite the trip. Number 8. Stitches. Stitches is a bit of a hidden gem when it comes to comedy horrors, with this offering a fresh take on the classic killer clown movies. After all, how many films have you seen that open with a clown sex scene? Exactly. All of this revolves around the eponymous Stitches, played brilliantly by the ever-great Ross Noble. You see, Stitches was killed during a birthday party, and so he returns years later to exact revenge on the kids who had a hand in his death. The film fully embraces the clown angle. There's intestines blown up into a balloon animal. There's brains dissected with an ice cream scoop. Yet somehow, Stitches keeps these kills from feeling too morbid because the comedy lands, and Ross Noble absolutely nails the clown aspect of this killer clown. And if that's still not bizarre enough for you, the film implies that a clown's soul is linked to its own painted egg and must be protected at all costs. It's just good, silly Halloween fun. Number 7. Thanksgiving. While Eli Roth's Thanksgiving was a genuinely great horror movie, 2009's Thanksgiving is, well, it's certainly something. This is one of those movies that's so bad that it becomes hugely entertaining. Made on a budget of just $3,500, everyone involved in Thanksgiving set out purposely with the intention of making a bad movie. And to their, credit, they absolutely nailed it. As for the plot, the film follows a homicidal turkey that goes on a killing spree during Thanksgiving. There's bad language, gore aplenty, gratuitous nudity, and a whole host of exaggerated horror character caricatures, making sure to amplify every horror cliche possible. Of course, the turkey puppet is also deliberately hokey, adding further charm to Thanksgiving. Number 6. Evil Dead 2. While the first Evil Dead movie relies on outright horror, Evil Dead 2 takes that horror and throws in a healthy dose of slapstick and physical comedy. And the end result, it is quite magnificent. Ash's hand becomes possessed and tries to kill him. He replaces that hand with a chainsaw, and the film even ends with Ash dumped in the Middle Ages. Evil Dead 2 is such a strange transition from the first movie, but it all works so well. And the success of this sequel is such a key reason why Ashley Billy J. Williams is nowadays a horror icon. Heck, the success of Evil Dead 2 is also a major influence on the career of the legendary Bruce Campbell, with that Evil Dead 2 performance leading to Campbell playing up that physical comedy in so many more subsequent roles over the decades, not least in the brilliant My Name is Bruce movie from 2007. Number 5. Bride of Chucky. The very notion of a serial killer placing their soul in a doll via voodoo, yep, that's a pretty ridiculous premise on its own, and that's just the very first Child's Play. Heck, that's the very first act of the very first Child's Play. But by the time of the 4th Child's Play movie, the crazy was amped all the way up to 11 with the introduction of Tiffany Valentine, brought to life by a mesmerizing Jennifer Tilly. Sure, Bride of Chucky may not be the most terrifying film in the franchise, but it's hard to deny that it's so very quintessential Chucky, and has been so influential on what the Child's Play franchise has become over the subsequent years. Basically, it's Chucky and Tiff on a Bonnie and Clyde type adventure, and what's not to love about that? The kills are gruesome, Brad Dourif has some fantastic one-liners, it's flamboyant and over the top, just as a story about a couple of killer dolls really should be. Fantastic stuff. Number 4. Frankenhooker. From the mind of the great Frank Henenlotter, Frankenhooker finds amateur scientist Jeffrey Franken in quite the pickle when his fiancée Elizabeth is killed in a freak lawnmower accident. Yep, freak lawnmower accident, that is a thing. Desperate to be reunited with this bride-to-be, Jeffrey puts together quite the ambitious plan. That plan? Why, it's to use the best body parts of New York hookers to create a body for Elizabeth's head to be placed on, and for her to be reanimated. Things do go slightly awry for Jeffrey when the super crack he created, as in a drug to win these hookers and their pimp Zorro over with, caused the women to literally explode from inside out. Still, this Jersey boy does manage to get the body parts he requires, and he does bring Elizabeth back to life. The problem is, Elizabeth, or this Frankenhooker, is out to find herself some customers. Want a date? Nah, I'm good thanks. For we see how sex with this creature results in death. Explosive, weird death. So yeah, I'll pass on that. Either way, Frankenhooker is an absolute classic, and is Frank Henenlotter at his creative and bizarre best. God love that man. Number 3. Poultrygeist, Night of the Chicken Dead. Trauma may not be for everyone, but man, I'm one of those who's always got a lot of love for the work of Lloyd Kaufman & Co. And never does it get more trauma than Poultrygeist Night of the Chicken Dead. Released to the masses in 2008, Poultrygeist is trauma at its ooey-gooey best, telling the tale of a fried chicken restaurant that's built on a Native American burial ground. The result? That's possessed, murderous chickens who rack up the kills in incredibly imaginative ways, involving meat grinders, fryers, mops, and a whole variety of other things you'd usually find at your standard chicken restaurant. As ever with trauma, there's plenty of social commentary here, mainly about consumerism, and that's all delivered in classic trauma fashion. As in, there's a bunch of gore, some practical fun effects work, and of course some questionable but knowing performances from all involved. Number 2. Jason X. Jason Voorhees, cryogenically frozen and awakened in the year 2245. In space, no less. Yep, Jason X is that sort of movie. And that's not even mentioning Jason being turned into a cyborg after getting his limbs and head blown from his body. Chin-stroking elevated horror, this is not. But Jason X is nothing if not a totally fun time. Featuring a brilliantly unique setting, some fantastic kills, including that liquid nitrogen sequence, and even a cameo from the legendary David Cronenberg. While the Leprechaun's trip to space in Leprechaun 4 was absolutely horrendous, Jason X is great. The sort of slasher where you leave your brain at the door, get your friends round, stock up on popcorn, maybe pop a few beers, all while watching Kane Hodder's Jason slice and dice his way through a space station. Number 1. Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Sticking with the space theme, an all-time classic, the Kyoto brothers' Killer Clowns from Outer Space has been back in the spotlight in recent times, largely thanks to Illfonic's brilliant Killer Clowns video game. Seriously, it's great, and if you stumble across me on there, you'll end up toast. Just warning you. As for the 1988 Killer Clowns movie, it literally does exactly as it says on the tin, with a race of killer alien clowns arriving in Crescent Cove to terrorize Mike Tobacco, Debbie Stone, Debbie's ex-Dave, and those bumbling Sorrenti brothers, complete with a circus tent-shaped spaceship, cotton candy guns, and a wide array of gloriously creative kills. Now, how about we finally get another Killer Clowns movie, or that TV series that have both been discussed for years? Seriously, help a brother out.